But we had a lot of, I think there were 25 kids there that night that were locked up in jail, and out of the 25, I think there were probably 15 or a little better that decided they wanted to turn their life around, get off the merry-go-round, and Teen Challenge is a really great position.
So if people want help, there are plenty of places to go to get it then, right?
I think there's plenty of places, plenty of people out there, John, if we can just get them before the people. Like Peoria Hotline, they're a 24-hour hotline. There's someone manning those phones 24 hours a day. They're ready and willing to help and counsel. And Teen Challenge is a big step for someone to go into. It's a 12-month program. You really have to mean business when you step into it.
You can't fool with them. They're on top of it. You know, there's something else, not to interrupt, Ron, but you know, John, I'd like to just really put a challenge out right now to the parents of not only your community, of all the communities around Illinois and all over our country, that I really believe that if the parents will get involved in what we're trying to do with these youth, that I think that we could see this country literally turn around. I really do. I really believe it. You know,
Do you think this is causing most of our problems?
Oh, without a doubt. It's one of the biggest problems we got, without a doubt. I mean, it's unbelievable. I could run statistics by you. You wouldn't believe what's going on in sex and pornography and kiddie pornography and all the things that are being caused by this drug alcohol problem that we have in the United States. And I'll tell you what, John, if we don't put a handle on it, you as a young man won't have a country to grow up into. I really believe that. I think that we need to get people involved in this. We need people that are serious, that are willing to get in there and really get involved. And don't you agree, Ron?
Absolutely. You know, the people, I think you can even relate better because of you're a few years older than me, in the mid-'60s.
He's stronger, though.
Yeah, you don't want to say it too loud.
Okay. Well, listen, in the mid-'60s, when we had the hippie movements and the freedom movements, and even I remember here at Washington High School in the late '60s, we had sit-ins and we said we want to abolish our dress code and we don't want to be restricted and we want a smoking area. And you say, well, you'd laugh at things like that. But you know, what's happened is we've said to the kids, okay, kids, you make the decision. Mm-hmm. Well, a 14 and a 15, even an 18-year-old many times doesn't have the ability to make the decision. We need to train those kids up in the way they should go, and so that when they come out of high school that they've been trained well.
I'm really glad you brought that up too. And John, let me just add one more thing real quickly, is that recently coming from Madison area in Wisconsin, the kids were allowed to make a decision whether or not they would come to hear me speak as a drug speaker now, totally, not saying anything about religion per se or anything. I mean, strictly as a drug speaker. They were given the decision whether or not they wanted to come or not. You know, what are we saying? You know, to the kids.
So the ones that really need it weren't going to show up anyway.
They weren't there. No way do they want to hear it. They, you know, a guy that's on drugs says, I don't want to hear that guy, man. I'm going to go and do my drugs. See, they're not going to hear anything you got to say. But there's a lot of innocent kids dying today because they're not listening, and because they're not being told to come in here. This is something that we need to hear. Something not only the kids but the adults. That's why that I put the challenge out to the adults. I'm serious, to the parents of this community and all over our country, that it's time that if we don't put a stop to what's going on, if we don't make a stand right now, we're not going to have a country, folks. I tell you, I really believe that.
Yeah, he mentioned something else just a minute ago I want to get your opinion about. I don't know if you're aware or not, but there is a smoking area here at the high school.
Yeah, I've seen it.
How do you feel about that?
Well, I don't know. When I was in school, we didn't have that. You know, we weren't allowed to have it. Personally,
what do you think? You know,
personally, you're saying, well, it's okay, go ahead and do it.
Well, there's
we've changed all of our
there's
laws.
some groups around that are trying to close it, and there's pro and cons to it. You know, it keeps it out of the halls.
That's the problem, John. There's always going to be pro and cons. I guess if we got the problem, we got to deal with it in more ways than meets the eye. And so I can't say that I'm against it. No. If we got the problem, then I guess you got to let them go ahead and do it. But what about reaching out to those kids besides giving them a smoking alley? Why don't we do some things like we're doing right now? Let's talk about what smoking will do to your body.
Don't just let them do it, but try and help them.
That's like saying, okay, we're not going to have the death penalty anymore, so everybody run out and commit a murder. You know? But what about reaching out to these people, and let's start talking about what cigarettes do to you. Let's get more into it. Let's raise our standards here in this school and in other schools. I don't think we have to lower our standards at all. I'm not coming down those people. Man, that's why I'm here, to help people.
Another thing you brought up is the death penalty. Are you for or against that?
Boy, you almost caused a riot with that one, couldn't you? I'll be very honest. I'm for it. Yeah, and
Just
as a Christian man, I guess maybe that'll draw a lot of flack. But I personally believe that God laid laws down for us to obey. I believe if you take somebody's life, then you should have yours taken.
All right.
As far as my life concerned, I come from a life of violence and crime, but I can honestly say that I never killed anybody, nor would I ever even have thought of killing anybody, because in my heart, I would never do anything like that. But it does happen. I know it happens. There's such a thing as premeditated murder. I'm saying if you go out and commit a murder and you had planned it, then you need to take your life be taken for it. But if it's something that other than that, then I think we can make a.
But you think all punishment should be toughened, don't you, for crime?
I think it's going to have to be.
Just a burglary or anything.
It's going to have to be, man.
You don't think people should be getting out in 5 and 10 years for murder? And
how are we going to stop it? First of all, if there's no rehabilitation in our prisons and jails in the United States, really, and there isn't, what's going to happen when these guys hit the streets? I mean, they can't make their way out here. It's too hard for them. Mm-hmm. Consequently, the majority of the people that come out of prison and jail, they go back. They're on a merry-go-round. Yeah. That's the only life that they know. Well, but before they go back, John, they commit another crime.
Yeah. Well, there are a lot of drugs in the prisons, too, aren't there? I mean, you've been in them, haven't you?
Yes, there's an awful lot of them in there.
So they have the same problems inside?
Yes, I think, if our government really wanted to get with it, I think we'd start clamping down in a lot of places. Because you're going to find out that there's a lot of money to be made in drugs, alcohol, and I'll tell you right now, as long as there's money to be made in it, people will be doing it. There'll be people there. Well, here's a good example of what I'm talking about, what we've been talking about recently. 2 months ago, I just got back from North Carolina, where 9 policemen were set down for narcotics. Okay? Last year I was in a school not too far from this area. I'm not going to mention the name of it, where a young man stood up during the course of the assembly and said, "Mr. Story, how do you expect us to get off of drugs?" First, he asked if we could ask the principal and teachers to leave the auditorium. They did. He said, "How do you expect us to get off of drugs when not only our teachers but our principals sell it and use it on the school ground?" It does go on in our society, and it's time that we put a stop to it. And if we don't, it's going to get out of hand. And I personally believe our country is going to go down if we don't do something with it. It's going to get out of control. We've let it go too far, too long. That's where I stand. We could go on and on where I stand and where he stands, and we can get all the opposition in the world out there. It's just a shame. I think we need to go back to the basic principles and rules of the Bible, of what our forefathers set down for this country. Now, I don't know if anybody knows or not, but all of our forefathers were Bible-believing men, and the laws that were written for this country were written from the Bible. But every one of those laws have been literally changed. And who's changed them? Man has. Consequently, we got ourselves in a mess. So I think it's time that we put prayer back in our schools, which was taken out in 1962.
So you think in the public schools there should be prayer?
Without a doubt. I'm not.
Well, what about?
I'm not saying that any specific prayer, anybody has to lead prayer, but I mean kids should be allowed to practice whatever they believe in.
All right. But you don't believe in a leading prayer or anything for because obviously there are a lot of people who aren't Christian. That's the problem we have between church and state right now. Yeah. There's so much controversy. Everybody's into religion. Personally, I don't know anything about religion. You're just into Jesus Christ.
That's me, brother. That's this man. That's the truth, and I'll stand for him any day.
All right. Well, I want to thank you both a lot for being here, and Dave will be back in future shows talking about more aspects of this. Thanks a lot for listening tonight. Good night. Hi, I'm John Burkey, and I'd like to welcome you to the Student Awareness Program. Our special guest again tonight is